The air in the small hotel room felt thick and stifling, as if it were pressing down on my chest. I glanced at the clock on the wall, its ticking matching the rhythm of my anxious thoughts. My stepbrother, Jake, sat on the edge of his bed, flipping through a sketchbook filled with his drawings. The room was cramped, two beds squeezed into a space meant for one. I could hardly remember what it felt like to have my own space, to breathe freely without the weight of family expectations hovering over me. Asheville had always been a place of vibrant colors and creativity for me. The arts scene buzzed with life, but here, in this hotel room, I felt trapped in a swirl of confusion and longing. I watched Jake's pencil dance across the page, capturing something beautiful that I couldn't quite grasp. It was hard to ignore the way his brow furrowed in concentration or how his lips pursed slightly when he was lost in thought. He was more than just my stepbrother, he was an artist, someone who understood the world through a different lens. "Do you want to see?" he asked suddenly, breaking the silence. I nodded slowly, moving closer to him. The sketch depicted a scene from downtown Asheville, the bustling streets filled with people and colorful storefronts. It reminded me of our last outing together at the local craft brewery where laughter mingled with clinking glasses and the scent of hops lingered in the air. That day had been carefree until I caught myself stealing glances at him when he wasn't looking. "It's really good," I said softly. "Thanks," he replied, a hint of shyness creeping into his voice. In that moment, something shifted between us. A connection sparked that felt both thrilling and terrifying. I had spent years suppressing feelings that seemed so taboo. An attraction to my stepbrother was unthinkable within our family dynamic. Yet here we were, sharing moments that blurred those lines. Later that evening, I overheard my parents talking in hushed tones outside our door. Their voices carried through the thin walls like whispers of secrets meant to be kept hidden. They discussed how close Jake and I had become during this family trip, how it might affect our relationships moving forward. "Emily needs to focus on her life," my mother said firmly. I felt a pang of guilt at her words, but beneath it lay an unsettling truth. Part of me didn't want to focus on anything but Jake. As much as family obligations weighed down on me like an anchor, my heart raced at the thought of what could be if only we dared to explore these feelings further. The next day dawned bright and warm as we set out for another excursion around Asheville. My parents led us toward the Asheville Art Museum, a place filled with creativity that echoed my own desires but also served as a reminder of what I couldn't have. Jake walked beside me as we strolled through exhibits showcasing local artists' work. Each piece resonated deeply within me. "Look at this one," he said excitedly, pointing toward a vivid painting depicting a sunset over the Blue Ridge Parkway. "It's beautiful," I replied, feeling an urge to reach for his hand but stopping myself just in time. Our eyes met briefly before shifting back toward the artwork, an unspoken understanding passing between us like electricity in the air. We found ourselves gravitating toward each other throughout the day despite our parents' presence looming nearby. Later that afternoon, dark clouds rolled in unexpectedly as we ventured outside after lunch. The first drops of rain fell gently before turning into a downpour that sent us scrambling for shelter under an awning along historic downtown Asheville's bustling streets. "Great timing," Jake joked as we huddled close together beneath its cover while rain drummed loudly above us. "I didn't see this coming," I admitted with a nervous laugh. The tension crackled between us like static electricity. Everything around us faded into background noise as we stood shoulder to shoulder under that awning. Our laughter subsided into silence until it became palpable, the distance between us closing ever so slightly. In one fleeting moment, a breath shared between us, our lips brushed against each other softly before pulling away just as quickly as they had met, both shocked by what had transpired yet yearning for more despite knowing how wrong it felt given our circumstances. "What was that?" Jake asked breathlessly after stepping back slightly, his face flushed with surprise mirrored by my own emotions swirling inside me like a tempest waiting to unleash itself fully upon us both. "I don't know," I managed to say while struggling against conflicting thoughts racing through my mind, all questioning whether this would change everything or merely complicate matters further still within this already strained family dynamic surrounding us both now more than ever before. As we made our way back toward our family amidst rain-soaked streets reflecting vibrant colors from shop windows glistening under droplets falling steadily around us, I couldn't shake off feelings brewing deep inside me. They threatened to spill over like an overflowing cup, unable to contain its contents any longer without consequence looming close behind every decision made henceforth. Back inside our cramped hotel room later that evening, I lay awake staring up at the ceiling while listening intently to sounds echoing from outside filtering through closed windows. The weight pressing down heavily upon my chest once again reminding me how suffocating these familial ties could feel even amidst moments shared between those who understood each other intimately yet remained bound by societal expectations beyond comprehension, sometimes even within such confining spaces. And so began this tangled web woven tightly around hearts yearning for freedom while grappling against forces beyond their control, a journey neither could anticipate unfolding ahead. The next day dawned with a heavy mist hanging over Asheville, shrouding the town in a blanket of gray. I awoke to the sound of rain tapping against the window, each drop echoing my restless thoughts. Jake had been quiet since our brief exchange the night before, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. Breakfast was a chaotic affair. My parents chatted animatedly about plans for the day, oblivious to the undercurrents swirling around Jake and me. He sat across from me at the small table, stealing glances when he thought no one was watching. Each fleeting look ignited an unspoken tension that made it hard to focus on anything else. "Emily, what do you think?" My father's voice cut through my reverie. Sorry, what?" I replied, snapping back to reality. "I asked if you wanted to visit the art museum today," he repeated, his brow furrowed with concern. "Sure, sounds good," I managed to say, though my mind was elsewhere. The thought of spending the day with Jake in a place that celebrated creativity felt both exhilarating and daunting. As we walked through the streets of downtown Asheville later that morning, I found myself caught between two worlds, the vibrant energy of the city and the heavy weight of family expectations. The local shops bustled with life, artists displayed their work on street corners while musicians filled the air with melodies. Yet amidst this lively atmosphere, I felt isolated. Jake fell into step beside me as we ambled through a gallery showcasing local artists. "You should check out this piece," he said quietly, gesturing toward a colorful painting that captured my attention. I studied it closely. Bold strokes and vibrant colors seemed to mirror my own conflicted emotions. "It's beautiful," I replied softly. "It reminds me of you," he said with a shy smile that sent butterflies fluttering in my stomach. "Me?" I laughed lightly to mask my surprise. "Why would you say that?" "You've always had a way of seeing things differently," he replied earnestly. "Like you're searching for something just out of reach." His words struck a chord deep within me. Was I really searching? For what? A way out? A connection? Or perhaps both? As we continued exploring, rain began to pour in earnest outside. The gallery staff urged visitors toward shelter as thunder rumbled ominously overhead. My heart raced. This sudden storm felt like an unwelcome harbinger of change. "Let's find somewhere dry," Jake suggested as we ducked into a narrow alleyway lined with art installations. The rain drummed loudly against metal awnings above us while we huddled close together for warmth and shelter from the downpour. With family members scattered throughout nearby shops seeking refuge from the storm, it felt like we were momentarily alone in our own world, a world where nothing else mattered but us. "What now?" I asked breathlessly, trying to ignore how close he stood beside me. "I don't know," he admitted softly, his eyes searching mine for answers neither of us could articulate. In that moment suspended between uncertainty and desire, everything else faded away. The expectations of our families and society vanished like raindrops on pavement. The weight on my chest lifted slightly as vulnerability enveloped us both. And then it happened, we kissed. A gentle brush at first, our lips met hesitantly before deepening into something more profound than either of us anticipated. It was electric yet tender, a collision of raw emotion and longing that shattered all previous barriers between us. But just as quickly as it began, reality crashed back, and like a wave breaking against rocky shores, the sound of laughter echoed nearby as family members emerged from their hiding spots, drenched but smiling brightly despite the weather's gloominess. I pulled away abruptly, shock coursed through me alongside exhilaration. "We shouldn't have done that," I whispered urgently as panic set in. "I know," Jake replied breathlessly, his expression mirroring my own turmoil, a mixture of regret and yearning flickering across his features like lightning illuminating dark skies. We stood there awkwardly while thunder rumbled ominously overhead, a reminder that storms were not just external forces but also those raging within ourselves, conflicts waiting to be resolved or forever left unresolved amidst chaos swirling around, familial ties binding us tightly together even when they threatened to suffocate our desires for freedom. Once outside again, after waiting out most of the storm inside various shops filled with intriguing crafts and art pieces reflecting local culture, I could hardly focus on anything except how our kiss had changed everything between us irrevocably. The rest of our day passed in a blur. Laughter erupted from family members enjoying ice cream cones despite damp clothing, while I attempted desperately to keep up appearances amid swirling thoughts clouding my mind like thick fog blanketing Asheville streets earlier that morning. Later, back at our hotel room, the familiar walls closing in once more, I lay awake staring at shadows dancing across ceilings illuminated by streetlights filtering through thin curtains. How could something so simple, a kiss shared under stormy skies, unravel everything I thought I knew about myself? About him? About family? Jake's soft breathing beside me reminded me how close we were yet how far apart we still remained. Bound by invisible threads woven tightly around hearts yearning for freedom while grappling against forces beyond control, an emotional labyrinth neither could navigate alone without risking everything. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, family outings planned amidst mounting pressure surrounding expectations weighing down upon shoulders already burdened by secrets held tightly within hearts aching for release. The morning light filtered through the thin hotel curtains, casting a soft glow over the room. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with thoughts of Jake. Our kiss lingered in my memory, a fleeting moment that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. I turned to look at him, still asleep beside me, his features relaxed and peaceful. There was an innocence about him in these quiet moments, but it was a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within me. I couldn't help but reflect on how our friendship had morphed into something deeper over the past few days. What began as casual conversations about art and shared laughter had transformed into an emotional connection that felt both thrilling and forbidden. The weight of guilt pressed down heavily on my chest. It was one thing to feel drawn to him, it was another entirely to acknowledge that attraction openly. The sound of my parents' voices drifted through the thin walls of our shared hotel room. They were discussing plans for the day, visiting local galleries and exploring downtown Asheville's vibrant streets. My heart sank at the thought of being trapped in their carefully orchestrated family activities while grappling with my own complicated feelings for Jake. "Emily. Breakfast is ready," my mother called out cheerfully. I sighed and pushed myself off the bed, careful not to wake Jake. As I dressed, I caught a glimpse of him in the mirror, his eyes still closed, lips slightly parted as if he were dreaming of something blissful. The thought stirred something deep within me. I wanted to reach out and touch him, to bridge that gap between us. But I hesitated, reminded of the boundaries we shouldn't cross. At breakfast, our family gathered around a small table cluttered with plates of eggs and bacon. The atmosphere felt charged with unspoken tension as we exchanged polite conversation while stealing glances at each other when we thought no one was looking. My parents remained blissfully unaware of the emotional storm brewing beneath the surface. Emily, my father said suddenly, what do you think about visiting the Asheville Art Museum today? They have a new exhibit opening. I nodded absently, forcing a smile as I glanced at Jake across the table. He met my gaze for just a moment before quickly looking away, his cheeks flushing slightly. The memory of our kiss hung heavily between us like an unacknowledged secret. As we finished breakfast and prepared to leave for the museum, an unexpected knock on our hotel door interrupted us. It was Mrs. Thompson, a family friend who had come to join us for our outing. Surprise! I thought it would be lovely to spend some time together, she exclaimed brightly as she stepped inside. My stomach twisted at her arrival. Her cheerful demeanor felt like an intrusion into our fragile world. Jake's expression mirrored my own discomfort as he stood awkwardly by the doorway. Hi, Mrs. Thompson, he said stiffly. Jake. You've grown since I last saw you, she remarked with genuine enthusiasm before turning her attention back to me and my parents. I forced myself to engage in small talk while silently wishing for privacy, just a moment alone with Jake where we could confront this tangled web of emotions without external distractions or judgment. As we made our way to the museum, Mrs. Thompson chattered on about local art trends and upcoming events in town while I tried to focus on anything but her voice. Jake walked beside me, his presence both comforting and electrifying at once. Every brush of his arm against mine sent shivers down my spine. Inside the museum, vibrant colors danced across canvases in various styles, each piece evoking emotions that resonated within me more profoundly than any words could express. Yet amidst all this beauty, I felt increasingly restless as if trapped in a cage built from societal expectations and familial obligations. Let's split up, my father suggested after some time spent wandering through exhibits together. We can meet back here in an hour. The idea sparked an immediate sense of relief within me. Perhaps now there would be space for Jake and me to talk without prying eyes watching over us like hawks ready to swoop down at any sign of weakness or vulnerability. As soon as we separated from my parents and Mrs. Thompson's enthusiastic chatter faded into distant echoes behind us, I turned toward Jake with urgency bubbling beneath my skin. Can we talk? I asked quietly enough so only he could hear. He nodded slowly, uncertainty flickering in his eyes as he led me toward a quieter corner filled with abstract sculptures that seemed oblivious to our turmoil, a fitting backdrop for what lay ahead. Once we were away from prying ears and watchful eyes, tension settled between us like thick fog enveloping everything around us, the air heavy with anticipation yet fraught with fear of what might come next. I don't know how much longer I can pretend, I admitted softly as we stood side by side before an enormous sculpture resembling twisted metal vines reaching toward the ceiling, a reflection of our own tangled emotions perhaps? I feel it too, he replied quietly but firmly enough that there was no mistaking his sincerity. Our eyes locked again, this time there was no hesitation, no fear holding us back from acknowledging what had been building between us all along. Our lips met in that moment, a brief collision filled with unspoken longing that left both exhilarated yet terrified simultaneously. But just then, a familiar voice broke through our bubble like shattering glass. There you two are. Mrs. Thompson appeared unexpectedly around the corner with wide eyes filled with surprise mixed with delight at finding us together so intimately lost amid art instead of wandering aimlessly elsewhere. Jake pulled away instinctively while heat rushed up my cheeks, caught red-handed like children sneaking cookies before dinner. Oh. Sorry if I interrupted something, she chuckled nervously as if trying too hard not to make things awkward when clearly they already were. No worries, Jake replied quickly while avoiding eye contact, his face betraying embarrassment tinged with guilt over what just transpired between us moments earlier. We should head back, Mrs. Thompson suggested cheerfully despite sensing tension lingering in air thicker than humidity outside during summer months here in Asheville. In silence we followed her lead back toward where our families awaited, each step toward them felt heavier than before, as though reality crashed down upon us again after those fleeting glimpses into what could have been. As we walked back to our families, the weight of our earlier moment lingered in the air, a mix of exhilaration and dread threading through my thoughts. Mrs. Thompson's cheerful chatter faded into the background as my mind raced. What were we doing? How had we allowed ourselves to cross that line? Jake walked beside me, his presence both comforting and unsettling. I could feel the tension radiating from him as well. Each glance exchanged felt like a silent acknowledgement of what had just happened, an unspoken agreement that things would never be quite the same again. "Do you think they noticed?" he asked quietly, glancing toward our parents who were oblivious to our inner turmoil. "I don't know," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "But we can't let this happen again." A part of me wanted to argue against my own words. The thrill of that kiss still tingled on my lips, a reminder of the connection we shared. But family obligations loomed large in my mind, reminding me of the boundaries that should never be crossed. We reached our families gathered around a picnic table laden with food. Laughter bubbled up from a group of cousins nearby, their carefree spirits contrasting sharply with our internal conflict. I forced a smile as I joined them but felt Jake's eyes on me, searching for reassurance or perhaps understanding. As dinner progressed, I found myself stealing glances at him when no one was looking. He was animatedly discussing some art exhibit he wanted to visit in town with one of my cousins, his passion evident in every word he spoke. It was moments like this that made it so easy to forget our complicated relationship. He was just Jake, the stepbrother who had become a friend over time. But then there were those moments when I caught him looking at me with something deeper than friendship in his gaze, an intensity that sent shivers down my spine and made it hard to breathe. After dinner, as dusk settled over Asheville and bathed everything in soft hues of orange and purple, I suggested a walk along the Blue Ridge Parkway. "Let's get some fresh air," I said lightly, trying to mask the urgency behind my request. "Sounds good," Jake replied too quickly, his eagerness evident as he stood up from the table. We slipped away from our families under the pretense of needing space, but both understood this was more than just escaping for fresh air. As we walked along the winding path bordered by wildflowers and tall trees swaying gently in the evening breeze, silence enveloped us once more, this time filled with unspoken words and suppressed emotions. I stopped at a viewpoint overlooking rolling hills painted by twilight shadows. The beauty before us was breathtaking, however, it paled compared to what stirred within me whenever Jake was near. "I've been thinking," Jake started hesitantly as he joined me by the railing. "About what?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral while my heart raced. "About us," he said simply but earnestly. The admission hung between us like an uninvited guest at a family gathering, awkward yet unavoidable. "Jake, we can't." He stepped closer, invading my personal space in a way that sent sparks flying through me once again. "Why not?" "We both know there's something here." I could see it reflected in his eyes, the same longing that had ignited during that stolen kiss earlier, and it terrified me how easily I could succumb to it all over again. "We have families, this isn't right," I managed to say despite how weak it sounded even to myself. "Maybe what's right isn't always what feels right," he countered softly yet firmly. His words resonated within me like an echo bouncing off canyon walls. They stirred something deep inside, a yearning for freedom from societal expectations and familial obligations that felt suffocating more than comforting at times. "Let's just enjoy tonight." My voice trembled slightly as if pleading for clarity amidst confusion swirling around us like leaves caught in autumn winds. Jake nodded slowly but didn't move away. Instead, he leaned against the railing beside me as if anchoring himself while still remaining close enough for comfort, a silent promise lingering between us even amidst uncertainty about what lay ahead. As darkness fell around us like a shroud cloaking secrets untold beneath its cover, we continued walking along paths illuminated only by moonlight filtering through trees overhead, a place where society's rules felt distant yet ever present nonetheless. eventually finding ourselves secluded within nature's embrace, far enough away from prying eyes yet close enough should family seek us out unexpectedly. We paused once more beneath twinkling stars overhead, casting glimmers across our faces, illuminating uncharted territories within each other's hearts. And then, without thinking further about consequences or judgments looming ahead, we spent the night together, wrapped in each other's comfort beneath those stars. Two souls seeking solace amidst chaos surrounding them, while grappling with emotions neither could fully comprehend yet both yearned desperately towards. Morning light broke through leaves above, waking us gently, reminding us reality awaited beyond this momentary sanctuary where feelings thrived freely without constraints. But now everything felt irrevocably altered forevermore, leaving behind echoes of laughter mingled with whispers shared beneath starlit skies. The morning light filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground as I stirred awake. Jake lay beside me, his expression peaceful, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within. The night had changed everything between us, but the weight of reality hung heavy in the air. We shared something profound, yet I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were teetering on the edge of a precipice. As I rose quietly, careful not to disturb him, I reflected on the implications of our actions. What did this mean for us? For our families? My heart raced at the thought of judgment from those who had always expected us to remain just step-siblings, nothing more. The laughter and carefree moments we shared felt like a distant memory now overshadowed by uncertainty. I moved towards the edge of the clearing, taking in the beauty around me. The Blue Ridge Parkway stretched beyond, a vibrant tapestry of greens and blues. It was easy to forget about obligations and family expectations when surrounded by such beauty. But my thoughts drifted back to Jake. Would he still feel this way once we returned to our parents? Would he want to keep what we had alive? A rustle in the bushes pulled me from my reverie. I turned just in time to see Jake sitting up, rubbing his eyes as he took in his surroundings. "Morning," he said softly, his voice still thick with sleep. "Morning," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. He studied me for a moment before speaking again. "Last night," he trailed off, clearly searching for words. "Yeah?" "It felt right," he said finally, his gaze steady on mine. I nodded slowly but couldn't help but feel a pang of fear at his admission. "But what does that mean for us?" Jake sighed and ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident on his face. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But I can't just pretend nothing happened." The weight of those words settled heavily between us. My heart raced again, not from excitement this time but from an overwhelming sense of dread mixed with longing. Could we really navigate this new territory without losing ourselves or each other? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a reminder that our temporary escape was about to end. It was my mother calling. She must have been worried about our whereabouts after last night's storm. "Hey," I answered hesitantly. "Emily. Where are you two? Your father and I were starting to get worried." Her voice was tinged with concern. "We're fine," I assured her quickly. "Just taking a walk. Make sure you come back soon. Breakfast is almost ready." She paused before adding gently, "And don't wander too far." I hung up feeling unsettled. Her words echoed in my mind as if they carried an unspoken warning about boundaries and expectations. Jake watched me closely as I put away my phone. "What did she say?" "She wants us back for breakfast," I replied tersely. He frowned slightly but nodded in understanding. "We should probably head back then." As we made our way through the woods toward our makeshift campsite, silence enveloped us like a thick fog, each step heavy with unspoken thoughts and fears about what lay ahead. Back at camp, our parents were already bustling around preparing breakfast over an open fire, a mundane sight that felt surreal after what had transpired between Jake and me just hours before. They greeted us with smiles that seemed oblivious to the storm brewing beneath our surface. "Sleep well," My father asked cheerfully as he flipped pancakes on a griddle. Yeah, Jake replied too quickly while shooting me a glance filled with apprehension. I forced myself to join in their conversation while stealing glances at Jake across the table, his brow furrowed in contemplation as he picked at his food absent-mindedly. After breakfast ended and dishes were cleared away, our parents suggested an outing into town, a chance for everyone to explore Asheville's vibrant arts scene before heading home later that day. My heart sank at the thought of being surrounded by people when all I wanted was time alone with Jake, to sort through everything we'd experienced together. As we walked through historic downtown Asheville later that morning, the bustling streets alive with chatter and laughter, I felt increasingly suffocated by expectations both spoken and unspoken around me. Jake remained close by my side, however, each brush against him ignited memories from last night that only deepened my internal conflict. I need to talk to you, Jake murmured suddenly as we stepped into an art gallery filled with local artwork, familiar pieces that sparked inspiration within me yet felt distant now amidst confusion surrounding our relationship. I nodded silently as we moved toward a quieter corner where fewer people lingered, a small sanctuary amidst chaos where secrets could be shared without prying eyes nearby. What's going on? He asked earnestly when we finally found some privacy behind an abstract painting depicting mountains under a starry sky, the very scene where we'd spent hours lost in each other's embrace just hours ago. I'm scared, I admitted quietly. Vulnerability seeped into every word spoken aloud, now hanging heavily between us like an unbreakable bond forged under starlight yet threatened by daylight's return looming ahead, threatening exposure at any moment. He stepped closer, his presence grounding yet electrifying all at once, as if somehow sensing my turmoil beneath layers carefully constructed over years spent navigating family dynamics fraught with complications stemming from love lost along life's winding paths leading here today. I am too, he confessed softly, his gaze unwavering meeting mine directly, offering solace amidst chaos swirling around us, both threatening everything. Before either could articulate, deeper feelings tangled within hearts seeking clarity amidst confusion surrounding them both. A familiar voice broke through, unexpectedly shattering fragile moment shared. Emily. There you are. We were looking everywhere for you. My mother called out cheerfully from across the room, her bright smile contrasting sharply against shadows lurking behind every corner, waiting patiently until exposed once more. Jake stepped back instinctively while casting one last lingering glance filled with urgency before turning away, leaving behind unanswered questions swirling between uncharted territories neither dared traverse alone anymore. As we rejoined family outside gallery doors leading into sunlight filtering down, illuminating streets bustling alive around us, I couldn't shake off feeling something pivotal shifted forevermore, leaving echoes behind lingering like shadows, trailing footsteps following closely. The day unfolded chaotically filled, laughter mingling seamlessly among conversations shared, but beneath surface remained unresolved tension simmering dangerously close, threatening exposure lurking just out of sight, waiting patiently until revealed unexpectedly. By evening, when it came time packing belongings, preparing return home again, I caught glimpse fleeting expression crossing Jake's face, mirroring own unease stirring within, heart racing wildly, knowing decisions must be made soon before consequences manifested beyond control, spiraling outwards leaving nothing untouched. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the hotel room, I busied myself with packing my belongings. The laughter from the family gathering outside drifted through the open window, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within me. Each item I folded and placed into my suitcase felt like a reminder of the tangled emotions I was desperately trying to untangle. Jake had been quieter than usual that evening. I caught him glancing my way more often than not, his eyes filled with an unreadable mix of longing and frustration. It was as if he understood my struggle but didn't know how to bridge the chasm that had formed between us. Despite my attempts to distance myself, our paths seemed inextricably linked, each encounter igniting a spark of confusion that refused to fade. "Are you okay?" he finally asked when we found ourselves alone for a moment in the hallway. Yeah, just tired, I replied, avoiding his gaze as I continued to fold a sweater. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You've been acting different since that night. I sighed heavily, leaning against the wall for support. I don't know what you want me to say, Jake. Maybe just be honest with yourself, he urged gently. His words struck me deeply. How could I be honest when everything felt so wrong? The weight of family expectations pressed down on me like a heavy blanket, suffocating any desire for clarity or resolution. In this moment of vulnerability, I felt trapped between what society deemed acceptable and what my heart whispered in secret. We were interrupted by the sound of laughter from downstairs, a reminder that our families were waiting for us. With a nod, I turned away from him and headed toward the staircase. The distance felt necessary yet painful. Every step away from him felt like tearing at a delicate thread binding us together. The family event was lively. It buzzed with conversations about mundane topics, work, school, and upcoming vacations. Yet beneath this cheerful facade lay an undercurrent of tension that none dared acknowledge openly. Jake and I exchanged fleeting glances across the room, each one loaded with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. As we gathered around tables laden with food and drinks, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, not just by our families but by an invisible force that seemed to weigh heavily on both Jake and me. My heart raced as we played our roles perfectly, brother and sister navigating familial obligations while concealing our true selves behind forced smiles. In an attempt to distract myself from Jake's presence, I engaged in conversation with my mother about art exhibitions coming up in Asheville. She spoke passionately about local artists while I nodded along absent-mindedly. My mind kept drifting back to Jake's earlier question, was it truly possible for us to be honest without risking everything? Later in the evening, after most guests had left and only close family remained chatting softly around us, I found myself wandering outside onto the balcony for some air. The cool breeze brushed against my skin soothingly as I leaned against the railing lost in thought. Emily, Jake's voice broke through my reverie as he stepped outside too. What are you doing here? I needed some air too. He leaned beside me on the railing, his presence both comforting and unnerving at once. I thought you'd be inside enjoying yourself, I said lightly but couldn't hide the tension creeping into my tone. I was, he replied quietly before pausing as if deciding whether or not to continue speaking. But it's hard when things feel different. His honesty struck a chord within me. It echoed everything swirling around in my mind but never fully articulated aloud until now. Different how? Like we're pretending everything is fine when it's not. His gaze bore into mine, earnestly searching for understanding amidst confusion. Before I could respond, he reached into his pocket and pulled out an old letter, a crumpled piece of paper worn at its edges. I found this while cleaning out some things earlier. Curiosity piqued despite myself, I took it from him, carefully unfolding its contents with trembling fingers. The letter revealed struggles from Jake's past, his fears about fitting into our blended family dynamics and feelings of inadequacy that haunted him during childhood years spent feeling overlooked amidst familial chaos. This is heavy, I murmured after reading through its poignant lines filled with raw emotion. It made me realize how much we both have faced growing up, he said softly but firmly, meeting my eyes steadily, now unafraid of what lay beneath their surface. In that moment shared between us, two souls burdened by expectations, I sensed something shift within both hearts, yearning for connection yet shackled by societal norms demanding separation instead of unity forged through understanding, shared experiences together over time spent apart, battling inner demons alone. Yet before we could delve deeper into those emotions swirling dangerously close beneath our surfaces again, the doors swung open, revealing our parents stepping outside, clearly looking for us amidst fading daylight, illuminating their concerned expressions upon sighting us together once more. Lingering close proximity, far too intimate given circumstances surrounding Familial ties binding tightly together, forcing distance felt impossible despite yearning hearts seeking solace within one another. "Is everything all right out here?" Mom asked, cautiously glancing between us, both sensing tension lingering thickly, hanging above like storm clouds readying themselves unleash chaos upon unsuspecting lives caught unaware. "We were just talking," Jake offered, quickly stepping back, creating physical space between us while masking emotions threatening spill over uncontrollably, leaving nothing untouched. "Good. We should head back inside, it's getting late," Dad added cheerfully, attempting lighten atmosphere surrounding us all despite underlying currents ready erupt at any moment should anyone dare breach unspoken boundaries remaining intact thus far. As we returned indoors, surrounded once more by family members sharing laughter mingling seamlessly among conversations, it became increasingly clear how impossible escaping reality had become, even amidst fleeting moments shared privately behind closed doors where secrets lingered waiting patiently until revealed unexpectedly, leaving consequences trailing behind ready, engulf lives forever changed, irrevocably altered without warning. The evening wore on, but even amid festivities celebrating togetherness, I felt increasingly isolated, caught somewhere between two worlds, unable to reconcile desires, conflicting loyalties tugging relentlessly, pulling apart threads once woven tightly together, now frayed edges threatening unravel completely, leaving nothing untouched. The evening stretched on, each laugh and clink of glasses around the dinner table echoing the growing distance I felt from my family. With every passing moment, I became more aware of the weight of my secret with Jake. The air was thick with unspoken words, and I could almost taste the tension that lingered between us, even as we shared polite smiles and engaged in light conversation. "Emily, can you pass the potatoes?" my mother asked, her voice pulling me from my thoughts. I nodded mechanically and reached for the dish, my hand brushing against Jake's as he reached for it too. A jolt of electricity shot through me at the contact, a reminder of everything we had shared in those stolen moments away from prying eyes. After dinner, our family gathered around the fireplace for stories and reminiscing. I sat on the edge of a worn-out couch, my heart racing as I glanced at Jake across the room. He caught my eye briefly before looking away, an unreadable expression on his face. Was he feeling the same conflict? The same pull toward something forbidden? "Do you remember that time we got lost on that hike?" one of my cousins asked, laughter bubbling up as they recounted a childhood adventure. Everyone chimed in with their own memories, but mine drifted to a different hike, one where Jake and I had found solace in each other's company. The warmth of the fire contrasted sharply with the chill running down my spine as I thought about how far we had come since those innocent days. The memories were bittersweet, they brought both comfort and pain. Each recollection reminded me of what was at stake. As night fell deeper into darkness outside, I excused myself under the pretense of needing fresh air. Stepping out onto the porch, I leaned against the railing and breathed in deeply. The cool night air was refreshing but did little to calm my racing thoughts. "Emily," Jake's voice broke through the stillness behind me. "I thought you might need some space." I turned to face him, heart pounding louder than ever. "I do," I admitted quietly. "But it's not just about needing space from everyone else." He stepped closer, shadows dancing across his face in the dim light from inside. "What are we doing? This, whatever this is between us, it can't last forever." The truth hung between us like a fragile thread ready to snap at any moment. "I know," I replied softly, feeling tears prick at my eyes. "But it feels impossible to just walk away." Jake ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "We need to talk about this, really talk." His tone was urgent now, he seemed desperate for clarity amidst our confusion. "I want to," I said, stepping closer so that our voices wouldn't carry back inside. "But what if they find out? What if it ruins everything?" His gaze softened momentarily before hardening again with resolve. "Then we'll deal with it together." There was strength in his words that drew me closer still. Just then, a commotion erupted from inside, the the sound of raised voices breaking through our fragile bubble of intimacy. We exchanged worried glances before rushing back indoors to find chaos unfolding. My parents stood by the dining table where an overturned chair lay on its side while my younger brother shouted about something that had gone wrong during their board game marathon. "What happened?" I asked as we entered. "It's nothing," Dad snapped defensively before turning back toward Mom, who looked pale and shaken. "Something's not right," she murmured under her breath while glancing toward me and Jake, her eyes searching for answers we weren't prepared to give. Jake's fingers brushed against mine briefly before he pulled away as if sensing our parents' scrutiny too keenly now. It felt like an unbreakable bond had been severed even though nothing tangible had changed between us, yet everything felt different amidst this new tension. As family members began to disperse after calming down from their earlier excitement over trivial matters, a sense of urgency crept into every corner of our gathering space like an unwelcome guest refusing to leave. I knew that whatever had just happened would shift things irreparably among us all. Later that night, when everyone finally retreated to their respective rooms after hours spent trying to piece together what had transpired, I found myself alone once more with only echoes reminding me how close Jake had been earlier outside under stars now hidden behind clouds threatening rain again soon. I lay awake staring at shadows dancing across walls reflecting flickering lights from street lamps filtering through curtains, thoughts swirling around unanswered questions lingering like ghosts haunting corners never fully illuminated by clarity or understanding. What would happen next? Would we be forced into silence or could there still be hope amidst uncertainty? My heart raced as possibilities flooded my mind, but none offered comfort, only confusion, leaving a sense lingering heavy enough to crush beneath weighty expectations tethering lives tightly together yet threatening unraveling completely. In moments where clarity eluded grasp, it became increasingly clear, whatever came next would change everything forever, and perhaps not for better. The days that followed were a blur, a cacophony of family chatter and laughter that felt increasingly distant from my reality. I watched as my parents reveled in their togetherness, oblivious to the tension simmering beneath the surface. Jake and I exchanged glances across the room, each one heavy with unspoken words. The weight of our secret loomed larger with every passing moment, pressing against my chest like a vice. We found ourselves drawn to each other even when we were surrounded by family. In quiet corners, we shared fleeting touches and knowing smiles, but the thrill was tinged with fear. The looming presence of our parents made every interaction feel like a tightrope walk, balancing on the edge of discovery. I often wondered if they sensed something amiss or if they were simply too caught up in their own world to notice. One afternoon, as we strolled through the bustling streets of historic downtown Asheville, I tried to focus on the vibrant art displays lining the sidewalks. The local artists poured their hearts into their work, capturing emotions I could relate to but couldn't express. "Look at that one," Jake said, pointing at a colorful mural depicting figures entwined in an embrace. "It's beautiful." "It is," I replied softly, feeling a pang of longing for something more than just beauty, a connection that felt both exhilarating and forbidden. "Do you think we'll ever be able to talk about this?" he asked suddenly, his voice barely above a whisper. My heart raced at his question. I don't know. The uncertainty was suffocating. What if it changes everything? "Maybe it already has," he said quietly. As night fell, we returned to our hotel room, where the confines felt more stifling than ever. The walls echoed with laughter from our family gathering down the hall, but all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart as I faced Jake across the small space between us. "I can't keep pretending," he confessed after a long silence. "Neither can I." My voice trembled as I spoke those words. In that moment of vulnerability, something shifted between us again, a familiar spark igniting old feelings that had been simmering beneath layers of guilt and confusion. We stood close together in the dim light, there was no escaping this reality anymore. "What do we do now?" Jake asked, searching my eyes for answers I didn't have. I took a deep breath, weighing my options like stones in my hands. Every choice felt monumental, every path forward seemed fraught with consequences we weren't ready to face. We need to figure it out before anyone finds out. The tension hung thick in the air as we shared another glance, one filled with both hope and despair. It was then that I heard footsteps approaching our door. Panic surged through me like ice water coursing through my veins. Emily. Jake. My mother's voice called from outside. We sprang apart instinctively just as she opened the door without waiting for an answer. My heart sank at her sudden intrusion. She stepped inside with an exuberance that made me feel small and guilty all at once. Dinner's ready. You two should hurry up. She beamed at us like nothing was wrong. I forced a smile back at her while internally grappling with what had just transpired between Jake and me, a moment that felt monumental yet precarious under her watchful gaze. As she turned to leave, I caught Jake's eye. His expression mirrored my own turmoil, fear mixed with longing for something more than this life we had been handed. Dinner passed uneventfully but felt heavy under layers of unsaid words and unresolved feelings. Our family gathered around the table filled with laughter and stories, each tale punctuated by clinking glasses and cheerful banter, but all I could focus on was Jake sitting across from me. After dinner ended and everyone dispersed into their rooms or off to enjoy evening activities elsewhere in Asheville, Jake found me outside on the balcony overlooking the twinkling lights of downtown below us. I can't do this anymore, he said abruptly as he leaned against the railing beside me. What do you mean? My stomach twisted at his words, dread washed over me like cold water lapping against my skin. Whatever this is between us, it's not sustainable. His voice trembled slightly but held an edge of determination that frightened me. Are you saying you want to end it? My breath hitched, panic clawed its way up my throat at even suggesting such an idea aloud. No. That's not what I meant, he rushed out before pausing again as if searching for clarity amidst chaos swirling around us both. But we can't keep going like this without acknowledging what it means. What does it mean? It means facing our truth, he said firmly now, his gaze pierced through layers hiding behind walls built over years spent navigating familial expectations while yearning for something deeper, something forbidden yet undeniably real between us both still lingering just beyond reach despite everything else surrounding us threatening unraveling completely. Just then, headlights swept across our balcony, their beams illuminating everything around us briefly before fading back into darkness again. But not before revealing silhouettes moving toward our hotel entrance below, our parents returning from their outing unexpectedly early. A rush of adrenaline shot through me as realization struck hard. They would see us here together, alone, and questions would arise faster than answers could come forth amidst confusion thickening air around us now heavy laden with dread. We need to go inside, I whispered urgently while grabbing his arm instinctively pulling him towards safety within walls shielding secrets away from prying eyes lurking just outside now threatening exposure entirely. As we hurried back inside our room, hearts racing louder than footsteps echoing behind closed doors, I knew whatever happened next would irrevocably change everything forever, and perhaps not for better.